the way people do. So that may not be the kind of answer you wanted, but this is my answer to your question. Thank you.
Sort of sharing what I heard from Eddie Wiesel in Paris. He said that every one of us lost in the forest. So step by step, by recording what we have done from point A to point B and leave it to the next generation, we can help building peace. I think that every one of us can do that, and that can be very useful for what you are now talking about is the bridge. So this is only just sharing from what I got from Eddie Wiesel. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Our comment is common, and our way of looking at these issues is also common. So I think we share many of the same ideas.
Thank you. Please, any more questions?
Thank you very much. I really enjoy listening to your great lecture this afternoon. You have nuclear scientists now are able to, because right now nuclear materials will be bought and sold on global market, and the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction around the world. As a scientist yourself, Professor, do you see we have a better world in the future? Maybe a world that will be free from nuclear weapons, from another, the days of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that we will never use nuclear and nuclear weapons or weapons of mass destruction in the future.
Thank you for the question. I think as you know, President Obama, he declared one of his programs was to create a world free of nuclear weapons. And so I'm a supporter of most of his programs, and this is one that I think is crucial. How optimistic we should be, that's something else. I mean, because it had become sort of a prestige for a country to have control of the nuclear genie and to have that under control, so they can. This is true. As you read the papers daily, there is a problem, as I mentioned before, right now in Iran and North Korea, but it could be also like countries like Venezuela. There's always a danger because this technology is relatively simple, and you need certain resources, but you can actually, the information is available, technical information is available. So the only way of creating a nuclear-free world is to find a peaceful solution. I mean, the nuclear stockpiles in Soviet Union and the United States is enormous, and is enough to destroy us all. And to convince the governments that they should destroy these and pile them, so see to that at least that they are not being stolen. This is a major issue that I think we will have to live with, including in my life and maybe even in yours, before one can seriously expect that you have a free world. But I hope that all of you realize and will, in your own way, see through that all attempts to prevent campaign against, like Linus Pauling. I wrote up Linus Pauling and Sakharov because they really were courageous. They believed in something and they were willing to be persecuted and imprisoned for their beliefs. And I think all of us should keep in mind that this is a real issue, even if it happened, over 50 years ago that the nuclear bombs were developed. It's still with us, as if it was yesterday, today. So, I think let's be hopeful. I'm basically an optimist. I love to wake up in the morning. I love the science of it was wonderful. And those of you who are young, I mean, there's nothing more interesting, more rewarding than being a scientist or being a humanist, studying literature, philosophy, poetry. I mean, there's so much to learn, so many exciting things in the world. And we just want to see what some madman, some orator like Hitler who destroyed Germany to a large extent. Germany still hasn't recovered 50 years later from the destruction of what he and his regime did. So we have, you have your own problems here, so very well familiar with the danger of power. So let's all work for democracy, freedom of speech, and see too that people have resources, have enough, so they can educate their kids, food, clothing. And this is once all of that is sort of under control, I think the world will be peaceful, like in Sweden. Sweden is, it's not a very exciting country, but it's a good country. It's simple and peaceful. And my hope is Cambodia one day will be another Sweden in Southeast Asia. It's something to work for.
Thank you very much. We have about 30 seconds to a minute for any.
Since the problem has happened, the scientists Mr. Muhammad Abadi, the president of Atomic Energy Agency, never settled the problem. Interesting also in a word that we say a peace in mind. A peace in mind is the master of a peace, of every peace in the world. So if we would like to start a peace we have to start from our mind, our everyone, from everyone hearts.
Thank you. I think that the world in which we live today wouldn't exist if it hadn't been for science and technology. So, I mean, you can look at health, for example, in antibiotic work can be developed, and all the various ways of trying to help. And as I brought up earlier, is to make a case for where science really can play a positive role. And I think you can find the fact that we have a telephone, that we have cell phones, all of the things that we have in modern communication exist. And I think modern communication is the one important road to peace. And it's interesting, at this Petra conference, Dalai Lama called, because he's interested in science and these general issues, and he's a wonderful person to discuss science with. We discussed that. So I don't think it's really the conflict here between science as such, what we aim for, finding the truth and trying to apply science in a way that is constructive to society. It's no conflict between people to live. In a free society, we can have any belief that you wish. So I think that we should end up this discussion with the sense that there is an anti-science spirit. I think science and culture in general is rich in our lives, and we should welcome science And we should welcome all expressions of human creativity that has a positive effect on our lives. And I think in our whole, I mean, as a neuroscientist, because the brain is what guides us all, and an understanding of the brain is to a certain extent the secret to life. And so this is, of course, like the nuclear energy that our bomb is intended anyways, to understand, to control the mind. So I think there are elements that we can prove that science will help us to understand why people behave as they do, how to educate our children better, to make them and their lives richer. And the negative thing if the government knows how to control the mind, then that's dangerous. So we have to be aware about that science can be used in a creative, positive way to help generations to come. But we also have to keep an open eye to see what's happening. So after the Second World War, I decided as a young man that I, for the rest of my life, would work for peace. Now this was before I became a scientist. But I decided that we have to keep in control of the demagogues, orators, and this dangerous idea, and see too that people are well educated and informed and warned if this happens. So I have tried to be consistent in my life, and now as a scientist, and in this talk sort of summarized my life kind of way of looking at science and peace and humanity in general. So I hope that you find that acceptable. So that I thank you all.
And all the guests here. Thank you for your presentation today. I'm really interested in the topic today, Science for Peace. As you know already, nowadays many countries in the world, especially USA, North Korea, China, Iran, and so on, try to improve or increase their own nuclear weapons in order to solve their problems or solve the problem. According to their behavior, according to the behaviors, in the name of the scientists, do you think that this behavior can bring peace for our world? And why not? And what you gonna do for the problem? I mean that what you gonna do was give the strategy for the next scientist. Okay, thank you.
Governments in many countries are not taking full advantage of advice from informed people, scientists, humanities, and because knowledge and understanding of issues and problems in society. And for the future, I think any country that doesn't support strongly education in science and technology and engineering, and invest heavily in producing training young people, and you have a wonderful opportunity here to see to that the next generation of Cambodian youth is trained in the various sciences, in information technologies, which is a major industry growing. Biotechnology is a major industry, so any country who isn't aware about the importance of supporting these areas in terms of financial support will not be able to compete because even big industries are no longer viable. So I think the best way for a government of elected officials is to have good advice. And I think in the United States still there's not a cabinet office in science. Some countries do have that. And this is how important science and technology has become for the growth and creation of jobs, etc. So my response would be that the best we can do as scientists is to give good advice.
Thank you. We had at least 2 more questions.
That we missed, even though it's not about science, but rather it's about social science. I'm going to come up with it anyway. Well, in the life of experience, we've all known that it's human innate personality. It's our tendency. It's our tendency to judge difference in a bad way. It's our tendency to achieve more than we have. It's greed. And one more thing, we all know that war and violence, either national in national countries or maybe international, all derive from the differences in religious ideologies, political ideologies, beliefs, customs, and all of those kind of things. Now, how can full peace be achieved when those kind of things, the greatest barriers of peace exist in this world, sir? Thank you very much.
Yeah. It's a very good point you made. And my way of thinking is being a European and remembering from history, when the Protestants separated from the Catholics, there was over nearly 200 years of war in Europe between people with different religious point of view. Now, that's part of history. It doesn't exist anymore. I mean, there are still Catholics and Protestants, but they live together in peace. And to me, there's no reason why Muslim and Buddhists and Christians and any other religious group couldn't live together in peace. So that to me is a matter again of education. You have to, early on in life, make it, teach tolerance of different points of view.
I must peace bridge come here, and I don't understand that why it have war. And the achievement of the First World War, the Second World War, we must know that because of the ambition of the leader. Right? So then how can we stop the ambitions of the leader? If we all here have peace in our mind, but the leader doesn't have a peace, so the war will be happening. So how can we stop the ambition? If we stop the ambition of other, we can that the peace can create, the peace will be happen. And the natures of the human being always have ambition, so the peace will be appeared. And my question is that, how can we stop the ambitions of the leader? Thank you.
I agree with it's a very good point, and I try to make it. I mentioned Hitler and Heil Hitler and all these kind of leaders are destructive. And I think that you only have, first of all, you have to have elections. You should only elect people who are not violent, not advocating violence and destructive idea, and that means that they have to have an educated populace. People have to be educated so they are not falling in the trap of this sort of propaganda or oratorial propaganda. So, and that's why it's so important for you as you become teachers or educators in various situations in life to keep your eyes open and see through that the part of human nature. And this is, I think, the struggle and the reason for the importance of beliefs of various kinds and religion or otherwise is to try to have discipline and discipline of ourselves and help guide others, particularly young people. And so,
there's a question over here, please.
Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. And I would like to ask the professor that I know that science and peace are connected together, but I want to know that from your feeling, But why does science still create things that threaten people? I know that science have created things like mobile phones, computers to make the world become easier. But why still scientists create things that threaten people, such as the new jet fighter from the developed countries and other weapons? And why don't we throw it away and live together as a whole happily? Thank you.
I'm not sure I fully got the question clear. Can you?
You mean that science and peace are connected together, but why the developed countries like Americas and other countries, they still creating weapons such as jet fighters for treating people for the developing countries for other countries? Why don't we throw this away and live together as a whole?
I wish I knew why that is the case. But the fact, you're right. I mean, science, to my mind, should be a productive force in the society. And the trouble is, as we have said now, a number of times now, there are times when science is used as a destructive tool. But on the whole, I think you have to look upon the development, scientific development over the last 100, 200 years has improved really. I mean, we have 6 billion people on this earth, and there is people who are starving, but there's no reason why they need it. There is enough food being produced so everybody can be fed. It's just that the world is poorly organized. There's no world government that would see to that the riches were distributed so that people have enough. So, and even with 10 billion people in 2020, the belief is that we will have resources for the world to feed people. But what's necessary, I mean, we have problems to get the world government requires really an effort that I think the world isn't ready for at this time. The United Nations was created after the Second World War in order to try to find a way of uniting the resources and the people of the world for peaceful purposes. And to my mind, the United Nations is a wonderful organization that should be fully supported and strengthened, as Einstein said in the quote but to go from there to actually, United Nations has no power, basically. But to go from there to create the world government, I think I'm afraid that, I mean, good things, I mean, the happy United Nation was created because the world was nearly destroyed. And it's as if these kind of disasters in the world, in the country, people now in Haiti because of the earthquake are not saying, now they're not doing, Haiti has been, I don't know if you follow, I followed their politics for the years, and Haiti has been in a mess for many years, politically, economically, and socially. And now people say, oh, they're going to rebuild Haiti. And maybe they succeed. And the resources, if the helping countries really sustain their help. But I hope we don't need another World War III in order to solve some of the tensions that we now read about every day. So let's pray for that we will have peace, and if we in the world of science can help in this process, we will. So that's all I do. So I thank you for
Right now we need to close.
Thanks.
science, I mean, speaking as a scientist, even if I have been awarded and all that, I feel, I have very limited ability to deal with issues of this. And so what I have said here this afternoon, more or less, I think what many of my colleagues, scientists, also said, they are very much in tune with your question and want to do what they can to help bring peace to the world. But we all feel that we have only limited possibility to do so. And I think this International Peace Foundation that organized this meeting is one way for us as scientists and also artists. I think we shouldn't forget the artists and the writers, because they are equally important to the scientists, perhaps more in some ways, because they are the people who can express ideas and convince people and make people understand the issues before the scientists are just kind of people who shovel away the snow, but the writers who do this, most of you students here are in humanities, it's not much emphasis on science, but you should know your role is equally important as a scientist in seeing to that you can, through your effort, your writing, your thoughts, you will influence people. They will listen to you if you say what you have to say well. And that in turn is how the world is turned around. So if you look back in history and read ideas, look at Mahatma Gandhi, for example. He was much more powerful than any scientist in terms of trying to create peace and understanding. And so these are the kind of role models. I haven't mentioned this. These kind of important individuals, because I was supposed to talk about science and peace, but for you who are in different fields, look at the role models you have. You should each have someone that you admire and has set up goals and have desires that consistently he or she has been working for. And so that's all be part of this process, not only as scientists, but as individuals, as humanists, philosophers, engineers, in all parts of life. So I welcome you to be part of the creating a better world. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the audience for the wonderful questions, and once again, thank you, Professor.
Excellencies, faculty members of the University of Cambodia, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, friends. It is a great honor for me on behalf of the University of Cambodia to extend a warm welcome to Professor Dr. Wiesel and Madame to the University of Cambodia, Post Cambodia. It's their first visit to our country, so it's really indeed a great honor for them to visit us and to be present this afternoon. Your visit is important to us because you will help to share with us your important research experience, your wisdom, your insight, and more importantly, your inspiration, particularly for the young people that we have here at this university. We are very happy to work with closely national scholars, but also practitioners also, who would normally exchange views and of course engage in intellectual inquiry. And that's why it's all we have to contribute to this program, humanities and the areas of medicine. I mean, we know very well for Cambodia as a country that's been working very hard to develop. One of the areas that we will have to work very hard on is health. The health sector is very crucial for policy dialogue with our Minister of Health, but also with the hospital where you will see the medicine in practice.
This dialogues towards a culture of peace. Bridges is facilitated by the International Peace Foundation, which is a non-political university, and I would like to thank the University of Cambodia, its President Dr. Cao Kim Horn and Chancellor Dr. Harissa Handa for hosting our event today. Having started November last year, bridges will now be continuously held in Cambodia until April this year, involving the participation of Nobel laureates for peace, physics, chemistry, medicine and economics, as well as other keynote speakers and artists. The third ASEAN series of bridges is an independent contribution to the Decade for Culture of Peace and Nonviolence, which was initiated by the United Nations General Assembly. As peace cannot be achieved instantly, but is a process which needs time, Bridges has not been organized as a single conference, but as a series of events in which Nobel laureates and international decision makers have built strong bridges for change to ensure a sustainable future for us and for the next generations. So let us be inspired by the knowledge and the wisdom that Bridges continues to offer. An opportunity to get a more inclusive, interconnected, and comprehensive view of ourselves and of the world in which we live in, and which we are able to create anew constantly.
Thank you, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Torsten Wiesel was born in Uppsala, in Sweden. He grew up there and received his medical degree from Karolinska Institute. President. He became an associate professor 3 years later, and then in 1959 he moved to Harvard Medical School. There, in 1983 he moved to Rockefeller University in New York as the until 1998, after stepping down, he remained as director of the Shelby White and Leon Levy Center for Mind, Brain and Behavior. The Science Advisory Board of China's National Institute of Biological Sciences in Beijing, and co-chair of the Board of Governors. Based on work done also at Harvard, Torsten Wiesel and his collaborator David Hubel were recipients of the 1981 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in recognition of their seminal contributions. He has also received numerous other awards, including the Ramon E. Cajal Gold Medal in the United States, the National Academy of Sciences in the USA. He is also a founding member of the Israeli-Palestinian Science Organization.
Good, by Dr. Anderson Grove. Thank you.
Mammalian brain, yielding knowledge which has been used.
Thank you, Dr.
The first, I'd like to thank President Cao for inviting me to come here and for providing the opportunity for me to talk to all of you here. And I also like to mention Chancellor Handa, who, after all, is a very important member of the university in terms of being a supporter of the institution. And finally, of course, I have to thank Uwe Marwitz, who is the organizer of through his Life Peace Foundation, to have a serious discussion about science and peace in a confused world in which we live. Daily, we learn perspective. I grew up in a large mental hospital outside Stockholm, where my father was a head psychiatrist. Peace. The second, I will discuss and mention some individuals. And finally, I'd like to mention a few of my own modest attempts to, very modest attempts, to build bridges. Also, I was born in 1924. So growing up during the 30s, I witnessed the events that led to the Second World War and observed the increasing tensions among the leaders and the people. As a demagogue and orator, and thereby creating mass hysteria with audiences screaming, "Heil Hitler, Heil Hitler." And you can see him in the pictures. Now this is a peaceful scene of a Swedish landscape. Now, conscious about the potential contributions to the prevention of war that can be made through better understanding of how the mind works, aggression and violence. After all, war is a result of an abnormal state of mind. In the world of science, these interactions occur naturally because the language of science crosses races, cultures and religions. And for that reason, science and serve as over the years have played a role in fostering peace. One avenue is to focus on scientists who have been awarded duration of such weapons. But before mentioning their contribution, let me read a quote from Albert Einstein, made shortly also a humanitarian of all time. So here we quote Einstein, and you in the back may not be able to read it, so I'll quote him. "The time has come when Nagasaki can destroy a city, kill all the people in the city. We can see that we must now make use of man." Now we know that peace has not been in the world since that time. Now with Andrei Sakharov in the Soviet Union come to mind as they become among the most prominent and the most persecuted workers. Warming, it may in the future become still more critical in saving the world from overheating. So countries like China and India have signed over 10,000 scientists from all over the world and from 49 countries also. Well, this was during the early dangerous day of the...
Recording what we have done from point A to point B and leave it to the next generation, we can help building peace. I think from Daily Western. Thank you, sir.
Science has downsides. Right now, there's a lot of progress in science, medical science around the world, particularly science in the area of what we call nuclear weapons. You have nuclear scientists now are able to, because right now nuclear materials can be bought and sold on the global market, and the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction around the world. As a scientist yourself, Professor, do you see we have a better world in the future, maybe a world that will be free from nuclear weapons, from another, the days of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that we will never use nuclear and nuclear weapons or weapons of mass destruction in the future.
Has the science play a role in fostering the peace? And in my own idea, I think the scientists play very little role in fostering the peace, the peace, the world peace, because
problem. According to their behavior, in the name of according to the behaviors, in the name of the scientists, do you think that this behavior can bring peace for our world? And why not? And what you gonna do? What you gonna do for the problem? I mean that you what?
But even if, so a whole country was destroyed. I mean, things happen. It's not. I mean, you have a similar problem here. I mean, this is what can we do to see to that this doesn't happen again in some country? And what can we do to help? See, I think this is an open question, and I can only tell you that there's no solution. There's no patent solution. We just have to be intelligent, informed, and do our best.
Certain people such as the military fighter from the developed countries and other weapons, and why don't we throw it away and live together as a whole happily? Thank you. Still, creating weapons that such as jet fighter.
Much involved in the music. I mean, science, to my mind, should be a productive force in the society. And the trouble is, as we have said now, a number of times now, there are times when science is used as a destructive tool. But on the whole, I think you have to look upon the development, scientific development over the last 200 years has improved really. I mean, we have 6 billion people on this earth, and there is people who are starving, but there's no reason why they need to. There is enough food being produced so everybody can be fed, just that the world is poorly organized. There's no world government that would see to that the riches were distributed so that people have enough. So, and even if we